Hey subscribers, welcome to a review of last week's battle, Battle 4 of Season 6. This is a battle between a number of forces. This is the layout of the table. We have, at this stage, just finished the introduction of filming this prison area here. So I've just done the storyline for that, about to start the battle as we speak. So this is really everything deployed. So what we have over this side of the table is we have an assortment of Tyranid monstrous creatures, Carnifex, Hive Tyrants, all that. So they are sitting in amongst these trees here. Amongst them are the cultists who summoned, I suppose summon's the wrong word, but they brought the Tyranid creatures out of that cesspool just there. I know that's not how the Tyranids normally come to a planet, but this planet's a little bit different. So we have one Gene Stealer hybrid truck, a bunch of Tyranid monstrous creatures, assortment of Gene Stealer cultists on that side of the board. Also aligned with them are the token amount of Chaos Daemons. Being a demonic planet, demons are everywhere. We have an assortment of plague bearers, lots of plague bearers, and some spawn just there. So we've got Tyranids, Gene Stealer cults, bunch of demons versus the Inquisition. Basically, we've got various Inquisitors. Our storyline, or our characters I should say, are stuck inside this prison. The door got barricaded in by an explosion, so they're kind of stuck in there for now. Here we've got some guardsmen. We've got an assortment of assassins just in various positions around the place. Two assassins sitting there. We've got a commissar here. We've got Inquisitor, some priests. We have some Death Watch too. So there's Death Watch. Death Watch has some various Imperial Guard tanks there. And that looks fairly heavily weighted towards the Tyranids and the Chaos Forces, but then we can look at the deep striking section over here. So this is stuff yet to come out. Now there, the characters, we'll leave them, they're not in this. We have a lot of Legion of the Damned, so they're going to be coming in, influencing this fight. So these guys are in a Rhino, not the Rhinos, the Chimeras. Down here we've got some more Legion of the Damned to come out. These guys here are sitting inside that truck. That's more sitting inside a Imperial Guard vehicle. Some Death Watch ready to come flying in. That is yet to come in as well, so that'll come in for the Chaos side obviously. And then we've got a pile of Legion of the Damned. Now this is not deep striking here, we're not going to talk about that just yet, that's something for later in the season, but I just couldn't put it anywhere, so that's where it is. So there, the assortment of things in reserve. That's our battle, that's our table. So we've got Tyranids, Gene Stealer cults, Chaos Daemons versus Death Watch and Legion of the Damned. Alright, stay tuned for turn 1 coming up shortly. Welcome to turn 1, Battle 4, Season 6. We've had the combined alliance of the Tyranids and the Chaos Daemons over there have first turn. So what we've seen, not a lot of action over here. We had this truck barrel out in the front, offering cover for most people. Tyranids in the background, tried to fire at the tank there. Obviously didn't take it out. Everyone else basically just came in behind the truck and trying to get into close range, especially with these Carnifex. They will do a lot of damage to those vehicles if they get the chance. Over this side we had some cultists just there, take a position on this rock cliff area overlooking this little water section, and try to fire on that assassin hiding there. Didn't take it out. Over this side of the board we just had the plague bearers and the spawn just trudge their way across the board, just trying to get into close combat. There's not a lot of guardsmen or inquisitorial troops on this side, so there's really only that at this stage, so they want to cover the gap as quickly as possible. There's an awful lot of deep striking units ready to come out, especially for the Legion of the Damned. They'll get their chance, and we've still got one unit for the Chaos Demons to come out, and again there are the Legion of the Damned. So look, not a lot of casualties at this stage, just some wounds there on that vehicle just there, but there's going to be plenty more happening shortly. We've got second half of turn 1 coming up shortly. Second half of turn 1, and the Inquisition have moved across the board and taken out the truck which was there, and its occupants being the Genestealer cultists. Just the truck and those guys there. So we had the Death Watch move in here beside the tanks, just in a little U formation there, and the Corvus, the aircraft, assisted in taking out the tank as well, and that Carnifex over the side there took some fire from these two vehicles here. Moving through the middle, we had some assassin activity. We had a shot from this guy take out one cultist over there. Not a very effective use of an assassin really, wasting it on the cultists. Now this guy over here, or lady, or whatever's behind that mask, was just sitting there, very exposed. Couldn't really make it across to those guys, and really had nowhere to go. So came around the side of this tree, just sat just outside of ambush range, assault range from the spawn there. So really don't know what to do with that one at this stage. Maybe wait for some deep strikers to come in and reinforce the position, but didn't really want to move any further, otherwise would get smashed to bits by those guys. Over this side we had the other Inquisitor get picked up by the Rhino and just advance across the board, and this group here really couldn't fire on anyone, so they just moved across the board as well. And we also had a bit of a storyline session in here where the Inquisitor's basically going up and down this prison that's being barricaded in, and in this turn one of the cultists or prisoners, I'm not really sure what the storyline is going to be regarding that guy. He's just dead anyway. He's just got inquisitorized, whatever you want to call it. So there you go. That's the prison. That's the end of turn 1. So we've got turn 2 coming up shortly. There should be some carnage. First half of turn 2, and the Chaos and Tyranid forces have advanced across the board and taking on the beleaguered Inquisition forces. Over this side of the board we've seen the Plague Bearers and Spawn just shamble their way across the wastes here. They couldn't quite make it into combat with the Assassin there. The Assassin just elusive outside of combat range there. So the Assassin's really got nowhere to go. These Plague Bearers here summoned the Chaos Spawn in the middle of that water section. The Magus there is on top of that rocky section, trying to oversee this sort of pool which generates, you know, both the Chaos and the Tyranids came out of there too. So I'll elaborate on that storyline later when I get the chance. Moving across this side of the board, There was some heavy weapons fire from Hive Tyrants and Carnifexes, whatever you want to call them, and they took out a tank just there. The Corvax flyer got hit with some bioplasma from there. All the rest of them basically just shambled their way across the board. Oh no, we did have some neophyte Tyranid, Gene Stealer cultists tried to fire and take out the assassin just hiding there, but the assassins are just flipping around all over the place, avoiding any damage, so they get to live. So all we had really is one tank worth of damage, but the problem for the Inquisition is that there's no real heavy firepower to take out all that Carnifexes, all those monstrous creatures there, and that spawn sitting out in the middle there. So there's really not a lot of heavy firepower. So we'll see what they can do. But if you look over here, deep striking to come is all this. Those guys are in tanks. We've got lots of Legion of the Damned to come out. All Legion of the Damned, all that up there, except for the guys at the end there. They're the characters. So there's lots to come out onto the board yet. But you know, at this stage, the Legion of the Damned really need to step it up. Alright, we've got the second half of turn 2 coming up shortly. Second half of turn 2, and all bar one unit of the Legion of the Damned are out. So there's been a lot of deep striking going on, and there's spot fires all over the board. So we'll start over here. Over this side we saw some Terminators with Thunderhammers come down and really just engage in a storyline session. They spoke to the Inquisitor, who's now in the Rhino. Rhino moved up this way to advance to support against the oncoming Chaos Horde. This unit of guardsmen basically took shelter behind this tree and fired into that spawn just there, and one spawn was taken out. This assassin here has been running from all fights. It was there, ran to there, saw that, ran down this way, is now hiding behind that. Over this side, the aircraft here was there, but it was facing all that Tyranid heavy weapons fire. It's fairly wounded, so it pulled across this way and fired in at the giant spawn just down that canyon there. So over this side there was this unit with the Commissar just moving up behind the Rhino, using it as cover, trying to reinforce this side of the board because it was fairly well in the hands of Chaos there. They haven't really been able to do too much just yet, but they're on their way. So now it's starting to look a little bit like it's contested. Over this side we had the Legion of the Damned HQ unit just there, just popped down, ready to reinforce this side. We had the Assassin try and fire and hurt the Carnifex there, to no effect. Over this side we had all this fire from 3 tanks and the unit of the Death Watch take out one Carnifex there, so one Carnifex down, whole stack to go. Back here we had another deep striking unit of Terminators. They fired and took out 2 hybrids just there. So we also had this unit of Terminators fire on the spawn. Obviously it's going to take a fair bit to bring that down. We had these 2 units of Death Watch come down here and take out the retinue of the Magus. So the Magus is sitting there taking those guys on. No doubt he'll run for the hills if he can. We also had the biker from the Death Watch try and fire and take out a Carnifex there. Nothing happened there, so not a lot of casualties. What do we got over here? We've got a couple of hybrids, spawn, Carnifex, a couple of Gene Stealers, not too much. Still got a deep striking unit here, and there's quite a bit here for the Inquisition. They're probably sitting in rhinos at this stage, all that too, ready to come out. So the board's starting to get a bit clogged up, but the Tyranids and Chaos have their move next. I don't think the Chaos units over here are going to do too much damage this turn, but next turn, assuming all these guys are still alive, if they can get into hand in hand, then it's game on. Anyway, that is the end of turn 2. We've got turn 3 coming up shortly. Turn 3, part 1, the Chaos and Tyranid advance. This has been a huge turn. So many things going on this board at the moment. It's taken hours and hours and hours just to do this half turn. Enough whinging. Let's move on around the board. Let's start here. We had some hybrids at the front and the Carnifex and Hive Tyrant, converted Hive Tyrant coming out of a portal, come and assault the Legion of the Damned. Took out 3 Terminators, lost a bunch of hybrids, but those Terminators really don't want to hang around too much with those nasty looking claws there. We had these Aberrants, I think that's how you say it. They just were sitting out in no man's land here. They just basically ran across the board hoping to get in amongst that. Didn't quite make it. Over here, this Magus is proving elusive. Was up there on that little section there, raced down here. These bunch of neophytes came from over there just to provide some cover there. Tried to take out one of those guys, but you know, the guns didn't really do anything. So that's what happened there. Over this side of the board we had the Hive Tyrant and Carnifex open fire on an enemy transport there, busting it open, and the contents is sitting there. We had the group of Deathwatch there, all bunched together, got assaulted by these 2 rampaging Carnifex, and they lost a bunch there, 3 models, so that wasn't so good. We had a deep striking Soul Grinder at the back here come down, and look, we've lost 2 tanks here, only 1 more remaining. It's not looking very promising. We had another Carnifex up here come and assault the assassin that was sitting there. That didn't last too long, he got taken out. We had this crazy spawn come rampaging down this valley here, not doing anything but just really wanting to get in amongst as much as it possibly can. We had the Chaos Spawn over this side assault what was a group of guardsmen. They just went down in one shot, dead. Over this side, look, these Plague Bearers, there's 3-4 groups of them, just shambling across the board. I used a bit of a story section here, just with you know, one sort of zombies rasping at the windows, like a, you know, one of those zombie films. I'll try and build some sort of cutscene into the actual story. You would have seen it last week, but I haven't actually thought that through yet. But I'd like to see, you know, them sort of attacking the prison or something like that. And this guy here, one of our key characters, can't remember his name, haven't really used him yet, but you know, I'll get familiar with it as the season goes on. I imagine he's saying, you know, there's zombies at the windows, what are we going to do, let me out. And this one here, the Inquisitors, I don't know, probably going to leave them locked in for a while because they're kind of barricaded in here, so who knows how that's going to roll out. We'll see how that goes. So that's the Plague Bearers they came across. That's it. That's the first half of turn 3. So a lot going on. We've got a heap of casualties over the side here. That's all casualties. We've got 1 unit here which is inside a Imperial Guard transport. We've got 1 more unit of Legion of the Damned come out, and another unit of Imperial Guardsmen. So there's still a bit to come out for the Inquisition. We'll see how they fare in the second half of turn 3, coming up shortly. Here we are at the end of the second half of turn 3. It's late at night, there's a giant storm going outside, and it's a perfect night to be making these videos. But anyway, enough of that. Let's have a look and see what's on the board at this stage. There is a lot going on. Let's start here. We had these Terminators here, there was 3 of them. They were in combat with the Hive Tyrant Carnifex and a bunch of hybrids. They withdrew and just went behind this tree here. These Terminators here up on this rock area here, they came down there and fired upon. There was 4 aberrants there. They got toasted. There was a giant group of neophyte cultists there, and they got assaulted by the Death Watch, pretty much combination, those 3 guys there, leaving the Magus. He's been in a few skirmishes and he's always the last guy standing, so he's just standing there, no surprises what he's going to do next. Withdraw and run if he can. Moving over this side of the board, we had this group of guardsmen here firing at the Carnifex. These things are fairly tough and withstood that. This tank wheeled around, fired at the Soul Grinder. Soul Grinder's still going. This group of the Death Watch here were in combat with those Carnifex there, and they just obviously withdrew from that. It was probably a 50-50 whether they should have stayed in there, but they chose to withdraw. Moving up onto this area here, all that, the Inquisitor there and also the Legion of the Damned basically took on one Carnifex and took it out. So 1 monstrous creature down. There's the Assassin who's been running all game. Started off over here, ran around that water's edge, obviously faced with all that, not going to try and sacrifice itself, so withdrew here, and maybe they might be able to involve itself in a future combat, maybe with a giant spawn there. We had the Flyer here wheel around. It's fairly heavily damaged, but it's chosen to go around this side of the board. There's not a lot of firepower on this side of the board for Chaos or the Tyranids, so it's pretty safe to just hover there and start firing at things. There's obviously some heavy weapons over this side of the board with the Carnifexes and Hive Tyrants. We had the Terminators with Thunderhammers come charging through, only got to about there, right in no man's land, but they want to start smashing things as soon as they possibly can. We had a Rhino go charging through, running down one spawn on the way through, got through here and then popped the wheel, spilled over, and all the guardsmen and the Inquisitor came out right in a very unfortunate position, because there's plague bearers and chaos baddies all over the place. Those guys are toast. They have to be. Anyway, we also had a deep striking group of Terminators, the last lot of deep striking Terminators to come out. So they came down, popped a few plague bearers, and they're offering a fair old threat up the back there. So there's still quite a few Terminators. I'd say it's fairly evenly balanced. There's a lot of heavy Tyranid and Chaos action over this side of the board. Chaos should really, and the Tyranids should really secure this side of the board. Maybe the Legion of the Damned should really secure this area up here, maybe. Oh, no, those guys, oh, I don't know how that's going to work out. We'll wait and see. And I don't know what's going over this side of the board either, so there's just so many possibilities. I suppose that's what we've got at the end of turn 3. We've got turn 4 coming up shortly. Stay tuned. Okay, here we are at the end of the first half of turn 4, and Chaos and the Tyranids have taken a whole swag of casualties. This side of the board's probably the strongest side. We had these two, the Carnifex and the Hive Tyrant, charge into. There was a group of guardsmen just there. They didn't last long with those two attacking it. these two Carnifex busted open a tank that was sitting there, which got followed up by the soul grinder, cleaning that out completely. That really consolidates that part of the board. Moving up this side, we had the Hive Tyrant Carnifex and the Cultists chase down the retreating Legion of the Damned Terminators. The Magus over here, surprise surprise, fled from combat yet again, standing out there all by himself. Surely one of those Death Watch are going to chase him down and cut him to pieces. So we'll see what happens there. Over this side we had the Chaos Spawn come up on this rocky area here and took out an Inquisitor and a couple of his retinue. So that is ongoing there. There's going to be some response there from the Legion of the Damned, and there's an assassin who finally might get some game time, might actually do something rather than run away. We had Chaos Spawn charge into a small group which had a commissar in it. They are now gone, but they're exposed to an assault by Terminators with Thunder Hammers, which will be an interesting battle between those two. Over this side, if you remember, we had a tank, a Rhino, that went charging through all these guys, and it got tipped over, and there was a group of guardsmen and an Inquisitor there. All these plague bearers just turned on that group, and no surprise there, they just absolutely cleaned them up. Now they've turned around and are facing a group of Legion of the Damned Terminators. So they should be able to cut some casualties out of that group, but we'll have to wait and see. So overall, that's a lot of casualties here for the Inquisition. That's all the casualties for this turn. So it's looking pretty strong, especially on this side of the board for the Tyranids and Chaos, but Legion of the Damned Terminators, they're pretty strong. They've got some heavy weapons. If they can take down a couple of these Carnifex, Hive Tyrants, monstrous creatures, they should do okay. And also we've got the aircraft over here, which really there's nothing on the Chaos side that can really sort of shoot it down. Well, we do have the, like I said before, the Tyranid heavy weapons there, but that's right over the other side of the board, so we'll have to see what they do next. Okay, we've got the second half of turn 4 coming up shortly. Here we are at the end of the last half of turn 4, and the Inquisition and the Legion of the Damned have taken out quite a few key characters. The Spawn, Carnifex, all that sort of stuff. Let's start on this side of the board. We had this group of Terminators here. They were behind this tree section here. They just moved around here and fired at this Carnifex here. Didn't take it out. Finally, this group of the Death Watch came and took out the Magus. He ran away 3 times and just ran out of his luck. Anyway, over this side, this group of Death Watch turned around and fired into a Carnifex and took one out. It's there. Still an awful lot of large creatures here. Those guys look like they're in a bit of strife. Anyway, we'll wait and see what happens next. Over this side we had the Assassin finally do something. Turned around with the assistance of Legion of the Damned HQ and took out the Spawn that was there, so they've done a good job there. Here we had the Thunderhammer Terminators assault the Chaos Spawn, and really should have done more damage than that. It's now fairly evenly weighted, that combat. Still probably the Terminators with their Storm Shields and Thunderhammers are probably going to do more damage. Anyway, the combined Plague Bearers all mashed together there, got fired upon by the aircraft here, took out a chunk, and the Terminators here fired and took out a chunk. Still an awful lot left, but I suppose that's maybe an even match for that. Don't know. See what happens. Anyway, that's it. And meanwhile over here we've still got this storyline element going with the Inquisitor basically talking to their prisoners now, to her prisoners now. They're still locked in this prison area which is barricaded in. I'll just try and flesh that story out, as these guys are key characters in my storyline going for the whole season. Anyway, that's what we've got at the end of turn 4. We've got turn 5 coming up shortly. End of the first half of turn 5, and we're getting towards the end of the battle now. Over this side of the board we've seen the Plague Bearers charge in to combat with the Terminators there, and the Terminators held up pretty well. We had 3 survive, but there's still an awful lot of Chaos Demons there, so that looks like about an even match, doesn't it? 3 Terminators against all of that. Anyway, we do have the looming aircraft here, so I don't know how they're going to handle that next turn. Anyway, we'll move on. Over this side, you'd expect this to be over fairly quick with all these thunder hammers smashing things around, but it's fairly evenly weighted. We've got 4 Chaos Spawn left, and 3 Terminators, and there's the character with jetpack. Try and get a good shot of him. All in combat there, so they're just duking it out. Over this side we saw the Soul Grinder and the Carnifex charge the remaining Death Watch. There was 4 of them, and they just got vaporised. These 2 over here, the Carnifex and the Hive Tyrant, fired and took out the Death Watch biker. And over this side, the remaining cultists and the other Hive Tyrant and Carnifex charged in and took out quite a few Terminators. So we've got 2 Terminators left there. They'll probably get reinforced, I would say, by these 2 jetpack units here for the Death Watch. There's quite a few things that are going to happen in next turn, but look, I don't know who's going to win at this stage. We've got 1 turn to go, 1.5 turns. The Death Watch and the Inquisition, it's their turn next. And as long as they can they can win this side of the board, somehow take out a chunk of those, and win that as well, that combat there. Yeah, I don't know which way it's going to go. Anyway, we'll wait and see. We've got the second half of turn 5 coming up shortly. Here we are, the end of turn 5. The Legion of the Damned have tried to combat the Tyranids and the Chaos Demons, but they didn't really do a very good job. Let's just say that. Let's start over this side of the board. We had the 2 jetpack Death Watch approach from out here, attack from out here. They came down there and took out 3, 4 cultists. There was 1 Terminator that was lost. So I don't know how that's going to resolve itself. It looks fairly evenly weighted, I would say. Moving over this side, we saw the assassin, who's now getting busy, came down off this rocky mound with the 2 Terminators from the Legion of the Damned, came down there, and with the assistance of all these Terminators with thunderhammers, took out all the Chaos Spawn that were there, so they cleaned house there. So that was a pretty good job. So they control that part of the board. Over this side, we had the 3 Terminators pull back slightly. They were just no way going to chop down all those guys, and that allowed the aircraft to come in here and fire it at the demons, taking out a few. So that looks pretty dire for the Terminators there. Even though these guys are relatively weaker, there's just so many more of them. It's their turn next, so there's no surprises what they're going to do. So overall, I would say, look, the Tyranids and the Chaos Demons might have the upper hand, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. 1 more turn to go. Stay tuned. Here we are, first half of turn 6, and I kind of buggered up on this, doing this video a little bit because I've just had to start the second half of turn 6. This is just the setup here. I was actually filming this aircraft coming in and firing at the plague bearers there. I forgot to do this video at the end of the Tyranid / Chaos turn. So let's just recap what happened. There was a Hive Tyrant and the Carnifex there, and there was a Death Watch with jetpacks there. They got taken out, and so did the Hive Tyrant. Now these guys are just duking it out. See how they go. These guys couldn't actually do anything. There was nothing to fire at really through all that. This giant big rock section here which got in the way, so they basically just meandered across the board. Over this side we had the Soul Grinder come here and actually take out the assassin that was just sitting just there. So the assassin finally got taken out. And over this side, that group of plague bearers was facing the other way, and they attacked the 3 Terminators that were sitting there. So they just finished them off, turned around, and now I'm just making this video now. I'm just in the middle of filming the final part of turn 6, where at this stage the aircraft there has taken out 2 plague bearers. So I'll work my way across the board and finish off turn 6, and that will be the end of the battle. Anyway, the second half of turn 6 coming up shortly. Right, there we have it. That's the end of turn 6, and that's the end of the battle as well. The final movements were the aircraft taking out 2 plague bearers, which we saw at the end of the last brief section. We saw these Terminators, they couldn't really go this way and attack the Soul Grinder, so they moved from here and just hit up behind this rock section here. You know, if there was another turn, they may be able to help out getting over there. Not to be. Over here we had some heavy weapons fire against the Soul Grinder. Didn't hurt it, didn't kill it. Over this side there was the combat between the Terminator and the Carnifex, and the power fist of the Terminator did its job and took out the Carnifex. So that's what we have. Look, at the end of the day, the Inquisition forces have been decimated and Chaos and Tyranid forces prevail. So now I'll go on a bit of a storyline element. I'm about to do this where these guys escape from the prison, and they will probably use this aircraft here as an escape mechanism, and that will be the end of that. After that I'll move on to my last character that we've got. Everyone else has had a introduction of sorts, but we have the Custodes next, so that'll be the battle for next week. Well, actually next week will be a brief storyline element, you know, using these guys. I'm still getting used to the format, but the next battle I'm going to have, it's going to involve Custodes. Can't remember who else it's going to involve, but we'll see what happens then. Alright, thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you next week.